My name is Lucas. I'm 17 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've lived in the shadow of my older sister, Isabella. We grew up in Atlanta, a city that never seems to stop buzzing with energy. The highways were always clogged with traffic, the skyline lit up with towers and lights, and people were always rushing somewhere important. But for me, growing up there wasn't about the bright lights or opportunities. It was about feeling like no matter how fast the world moved, I was standing still, stuck in a place where I didn't matter. Because while I was trying to figure out who I was, Isabella already seemed to have it all. She was the golden child, beautiful, confident, charismatic, the kind of person who could walk into a crowded room and immediately have everyone's attention. At family gatherings, relatives would gush over her. At school, teachers would praise her. At the mall, people would turn their heads. She had this effortless presence, and everyone seemed drawn to her like moths to a flame. And me? I was just there. To my parents, Isabella was the trophy, the one to show off, the one to invest in. I was the afterthought. When my dad, Richard, took her shopping at Lenox Square Mall, she came home with bags of designer clothes, while I was told we didn't have the budget for me. When my mom, Elaine, bragged to her friends, it was always about Isabella's grades, her beauty, her accomplishments. I was invisible. Unless I messed up, then suddenly I existed, as a disappointment. At home, even the small things reminded me of the hierarchy. Isabella got the bigger bedroom with the walk-in closet, while I was crammed into the smaller one at the end of the hall. She had the latest iPhone, while I was stuck with a hand-me-down. When she complained about dinner, Mom cooked her something else, while I was told to be grateful and eat what I had. At school, it wasn't much better. We both went to Northview High School, and Isabella had this reputation: she was admired, envied, and adored. Teachers loved her because she was smart and articulate. The boys at school practically worshipped her, and the girls either wanted to be her friend or hated her out of jealousy. And me? I wasn't Lucas. I was Isabella's brother. That was my entire identity. The worst part wasn't even being ignored. It was the way Isabella made sure I stayed beneath her. She loved the power she had over me. If I liked something, she'd ruin it for me. If I bought new clothes, she mocked them until I never wore them again. If I had a crush, she swooped in and took them, like it was a game. She could have had anyone, but she always seemed to want what I wanted. Like it wasn't enough for her to shine, she had to make sure I stayed in the dark. By the time I was a sophomore, I had grown used to it. Numb, even. I told myself that was my role in the family, the background character. But then came Marcus. Marcus was different. He wasn't like the other guys at school who only cared about sports or cliques. He was kind, funny, and actually listened when I talked. We met in history class, sitting side by side near the window. At first, it was just small talk about assignments, but then we discovered we both loved old movies and classic rock. He was the first person in a long time who made me feel like I was seen, not Isabella's brother, not invisible, but me, Lucas. For the first time, I felt alive. But Isabella noticed. She always noticed. At first, she didn't seem to care. She would roll her eyes when she saw us talking and mutter things like, "Wow, Lucas finally made a friend." But then, when Marcus and I started hanging out more, studying together, grabbing pizza after school, laughing about stupid jokes, Isabella suddenly took an interest. She'd accidentally show up when we were talking. She'd make sly comments, laugh at his jokes, touch his arm. I saw it happening, but I tried to convince myself that Marcus wouldn't fall for it. He was different. He cared about me. But slowly, I saw his attention shift. One night, I came downstairs for water and found them sitting on the couch, heads close together, whispering and smiling. My stomach dropped. The next week, Marcus stopped sitting with me at lunch. 2 weeks later, Isabella announced casually at dinner that she and Marcus were dating. I felt my world collapse. When I confronted her, she just smirked. "Oh, Lucas, don't be so dramatic. He was never really into you." I cried to my parents, but they brushed it off. "Boys come and go," Mom said. "Don't be jealous of your sister." Jealous? That's what they always said. Like my pain wasn't real, like it was just envy. It kept happening. Every time I liked someone, Isabella would swoop in. It became her game, her way of reminding me that she could take anything I had. By my junior year, I was done. I stopped bringing friends home. I stopped talking about crushes. I shut down. But then, something changed. During spring break, we went to visit our grandparents in Roswell, just outside Atlanta. My grandma Margaret and Grandpa Thomas lived in a quiet neighborhood near the woods. Unlike my parents, they actually saw me. Grandma Margaret always asked about my classes, my hobbies, my interests. She didn't compare me to Isabella, she just listened. Grandpa Thomas loved to play chess with me, and he never treated me like an afterthought. With them, I wasn't invisible. One evening, as I helped Grandma Margaret prepare dinner, she looked at me and said softly, "Lucas, you're stronger than you think. You don't have to live in Isabella's shadow forever." Those words stuck with me. When we returned to Atlanta, I couldn't stop thinking about them. I didn't want to just survive anymore. I wanted Isabella to understand what she had done to me. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be betrayed by someone she trusted. And then, at the start of senior year, a new guy named Mateo transferred to Northview High. Mateo was charming, but reckless. He was the kind of guy who broke rules for fun, who thrived on chaos. He skipped class, partied hard, and had a reputation for breaking hearts. Normally, I wouldn't have gone near him. But when I overheard Isabella whisper to her friends that she was definitely going to make him hers, I knew what I had to do. I introduced myself to Mateo. We started talking between classes, hanging out after school. I knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't trying to date him, I was setting the stage. And like clockwork, Isabella swooped in. Within weeks, she and Mateo were inseparable. She bragged about him constantly, paraded him around like her greatest prize. She thought she'd won again. But I knew the truth. I'd seen the way Mateo's eyes wandered, the way he lied easily, the way he flirted with anyone who gave him attention. He was a storm waiting to destroy everything in his path. By winter formal, Mateo had already cheated on her twice, once with one of her closest friends. When Isabella found out, she came home sobbing, mascara streaked down her face, screaming that her life was over. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel powerless. It wasn't about Matteo. It was about finally turning the tables, about Isabella finally knowing what it felt like to be humiliated, betrayed, destroyed. Did it fix everything? No. My parents still favored her. They still saw me as second best. But inside, I felt different. Stronger. Because for once, I wasn't just Isabella's brother. I was Lucas. And I wasn't going to live in her shadow anymore.